Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you today. The star of the show today, of course, is El Señor, the America's lawyer, Mike Papantonio. Mike Papantonio, we'll talk about it later on and what he's doing with the opioid crisis. But before we get into the show, I want to go ahead and discuss a few issues here and there. And let me go ahead and first start the show by letting folks know what's really going on here. And if I can pull up my show, which it turns out that I always have a problem in the beginning pulling the show up because there's so many fires that you're trying to put out at the same time. Folks, I need a producer. So, folks, I need a producer. I need a little bit more than that so that we can actually get some stuff going. So that is why we've been asking for your subscriptions, because, man, I need some help with all these different things that you have to put together to have all these kinds of shows. But anyhow, the title of the show today is Mike Papantonio, Big Pharma Corporations, nothing but legalized drug pushers. Opioids, anybody? Subtitle, Mike Papantonio, America's lawyer on Ring of Fire, discusses the fraud that is the actions of pharmaceutical companies in the opioid epidemic. Mike Papantonio hits the nail on the head on Big Pharma's complicity in addicting millions of Americans to opioids. Co-host of the Ring of Fire radio show, Mike Papantonio, aka America's lawyer, appears on Politics Done Right to discuss how pharmaceutical corporations have decimated the health of millions. And if you doubt it, folks, just go around your neighborhood. I know a lot of people around here, and they're not saying anything, but I see them in Starbucks, I see them everywhere. They're pretty much high. You know that. You know how to figure it out, but it's all legal. They have their prescriptions, and they're keeping the drug companies satisfied. Because what? That's how they make their money. Drug companies, because of the economic system that we're in, like any other company that gives nothing of significant value additively, meaning after you're done making insulin, what else is there? After you're done making these different products, what else is there? And that is where we are. I want to continue with the program, but I really want to touch on this topic because we didn't go in detail on this when I spoke to Papantonio. But the model that we have in this country is that the only thing that matters is growth. And if the only thing that matters is growth as opposed to, let's say, steady state, you're doing something good, you're doing something well, so just keep doing it and not having to expand and expand and expand. Just do what you do well, things would be fine. But in a society that we have today, where the stock market does not feel happy that any particular company is just making the same amount of money that it made the last time or anything of that sort. It wants continuous growth at all cost. And that all cost is you. In the case of pharmaceutical companies, that all cost is whatever the market will bear to buy something they need, whether they need it or not. So we'll discuss that. I have some typos in the blog post that I have to fix. Sadly, it is a double whammy. We pay Big Pharma to infect millions. And to detoxify and heal them, we pay Big Pharma again. That is the real story. And I said I wasn't going to use this word, but I'm using it in this context for corporations. That is the real story of socialism in this country. It's called corporate welfare, socialized corporatism, socialized capitalism. It sounds like an oxymoron, right? But no. Capitalism by design eats the way we're talking about, and it eats the government, and in the process of eating the government, it becomes a type of socialism in its own right. But anyhow, let's go ahead and talk today. First thing I want to talk about is something that's been happening in Kingwood, that happened here in Kingwood, Texas. And that is there's a flyer going around claiming that many of us, in the case of myself, the flyer is claiming that I am a supporter of Bill King for mayor of Houston. I have made absolutely no endorsements. I've made absolutely no qualifications as far as who I support for mayor of Houston. So any flyer anybody is seeing stating that I am supporting any particular candidate at this time, I do have a candidate that I support, and when the time is appropriate, I'll make that known. But there's no candidate that can put on any list that Egberto Willies is a supporter. And they did the same thing with a lot of other good people around here. Many of them that are Democratic precinct chairs in Kingwood, Texas. There is no Democratic chair in Kingwood, Texas, who has authorized their names to be placed on any pamphlet, any website, anything stating that they support Bill King. There is no Democratic candidate, there is no Democratic precinct chair that has said that. So any flyer that you may receive that says that is incorrect. It's given you bad information. Second topic I want to talk about is this fake outrage, right? There is a fake outrage going on. Joaquin Castro, the congressman from San Antonio, that he went ahead and he printed out, or he retweeted or reposted or something like to that effect, a statement saying these are local businesses or people who have maxed out their donation to Donald Trump. Many of these include restaurants, restaurant owners, etc., who are funded by, who Latinos work for. Muchos Latinos están trabajando para esas empresas. A lot of Latins are working for these corporations, these restaurants and other businesses, and these guys have maxed out their support for Donald Trump. Now he's getting pushback. The New York Times and many of them are saying it's dangerous to single out these people who are supporting Donald Trump. Are you crazy? Donald Trump, in effect, is effecting the murder of people, and you want Joaquin Castro to be quiet. You don't want him to say, you know why Donald Trump can pay for all those ads that pollutes your mind? You know why Donald Trump can run all those ads that are killing? Do you know why Donald Trump can do all these things? Donald Trump can do all these things because we have what I can only call, in this case, in the case of Donald Trump. I'm not saying you have people have to share the same, the support for the same candidates or anything like that. This is a free society. But when you come to the stage, when we are at a stage that we have a president that is inciting violence, when we have a president that is inciting violence, it is essential. In fact, it is your duty to make sure all those who are supporting his activities to harm are made known. I am serious about that. So this false, when it was time to put all the information on those folks that are giving money to the Clinton Foundation and all that kind of stuff, the New York Times did not have any problems creating a searchable database for people to look up everybody who gave money to the Clintons, etc., etc., etc. Suddenly, Joaquin Castro retweeted or resent something that says, these are the people supporting Donald Trump. And they want to say, oh, that could cause them harm? No. What has caused harm is the money that they have given to Donald Trump, that Donald Trump used to incite violence from right-wing nationalists. That is where the violence lies. Let's not allow the story to change. Let's not allow the narrative to change. Joaquin Castro did absolutely nothing wrong. And it is essential that everybody comes out in defense of Joaquin Castro, and not only in defense of Joaquin Castro. If you happen to know folks that are maxing out to Donald Trump, have no fear letting folks know, well, how can you be a benevolent person if you are donating monies to Donald Trump? For those of you who are just signing up, our guest today, coming up after my my little intro here, is going to be America's lawyer, Mike Papantonio. We'll be coming up with Mike Papantonio in a minute. I have one other topic that I want to discuss before I go to Mr. Papantonio, and that is a blog that I wrote. I wrote a blog 2 days ago. It went viral. I don't know. I think we're probably over 60, 70, 80,000 views on this thing already. But here's the thing. This is what I blogged. This is a picture that I saw on Adrian Bell's website. Actually, I was in a thread, and the thread said Adrian Bell, who's running for Congress, happened to get a photo from, I don't know where she got it, that showed two police officers dragging a black man in Galveston by a leash. He was trespassing apparently somewhere in Galveston, and they arrested him, and the way they transported him to some central location was to put in him handcuffs and put a leash on him and pull it. When I saw that, I called up the police station, the Galveston PD, and I said, I'm with Politcs Done Right, a show at KPFT and elsewhere, and I needed to find out exactly what was going on here. They passed me to the sergeant, and he said he wasn't committal, and then I called again, and finally they said, we are going to release a statement. And the statement said, yes, that the guy was arrested, but it wasn't a leash. It was a rope tied to his handcuffs. In other words, it wasn't a dog leash, but it was a leash that they were pulling this guy by. Now, what concerns me is most people thought this was outrageous. Most people thought, it's not only the optics. This looks like it could be the 1800s, right? This also how far removed is this from that guy who got pulled in Jasper, Texas? Don't remember the name of the guy that got, the connotations, the vision that you see when you see these things. You have to ask those kinds of questions. How do they feel that it is okay to pull a man like that on his feet? These two officers on their horses pulling a guy, and moreover a black guy, with the history that we have in this country. But then I start to get emails, direct emails. Some of them called me a racist. Some of them told me one of these days the police officers are just going to stop doing their jobs. A few of them said, what did you expect them to do? Another one said, well, it may look bad, but he was doing the right thing. At the Daily Coast, the most progressive site in the country, there was one person that said, it looks bad, but it's not wrong. My answer to him was, wow. Where is the empathy? Whenever, and there was one woman who said she is a liberal, and she said, if we keep moving to the left like this, we're going to lose, because all we're talking about is we're just moving left, left, left. How is doing the right thing, because it's coming from left-wingers like myself or others, how is doing the right thing wrong? So I replied to her and I said, look, this is not about left or right, but I tell you what, I'm going to tell you something. Empathy is what concerns me here. If that was a white person, a white blue-eyed blonde child being pulled by a leash by two cops, And let's change it around. A white, blue-eyed, blonde child being pulled by a cop in our society today. Remember, I know race is a stupid thing. Race, there's no race, but in our society, it does matter still. Think about two black police officers mounted on a horse pulling a white vagrant in handcuffs by a leash. Can you believe what that optics would be, not only in right-wing media, but in all media? They would have that cop's head in no time. But everybody is attempting to find a justification for what you're seeing on the screen right now. There must be some justification. No. Look, the police officers have a problem. When you have several police officers in Arizona wearing MAGA hats and taking photo ops with the president, there is a problem. When you have police officers that kill innocent black men and Latinos and people of color and every single time get off, there's a problem. And there is a bigger problem, and the bigger problem are people who are scared, who know it's wrong. And I'm talking now specifically to my white brothers and sisters who know it's wrong, but for their fear of us moving to the left, as in doing good is bad when it's the left. As if doing good is something on the left and we can't do so good because it's on the left. Do you understand how that sounds? So I replied to the woman and I said, I speak to many Trumpists. I speak to many people. I am an equal opportunity offender as well as an equal opportunity talking to that person. And when I talk to them about policy, not ideological, making sure it's not attached ideologically or whatever, I talk to them about the wants, what we have as wants. It tells me the polls are right. I would sit in a Starbucks speaking to a red Trump voter, the Republican, and we will talk about healthcare. I wouldn't call it Medicare for all. I would point out what Medicare for all is doing without ever using the word, just telling them, and you go to the doctor and X, Y happens. I will talk about child care. I would talk about all these things without giving them the progressive moniker that we use. And these people would be astounded. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, if we could do that, that would be great. And can we afford that? And when I explain to them, oh yeah, this is how you can pay for that, they all agree. In fact, they even agree on the 2% tax on wealth. When I explain to them that on average wealth grow between 7% and above every year for just sitting there. So given that it's built on the backs of the entire society, what is taking 2% to do what's good for society? And when I make the case, these people sit back and think. Like I said, most people are good people. And when you make the case for them, when you take the time to sit down and talk to everybody as they are intelligent beings, when you do that, and people gain your respect, even if they know you're a lefty, they gain your respect when you take the time first to listen to them, and then to talk to them, and then to ask them questions about the policies that you're trying to promote. And like I said, most of the times, 80 to 90% of the time, they are in agreement with these policies. So to my friend who I replied when she said, we're moving too left and I'm just scared we're going to lose. Stop being fearful of being humane. Stop being fearful of being honest. Stop being fearful of doing the right thing. Stop being fearful of caring for other people. Stop being frightful that being good means you can't get elected. You see, in our economic system, where the thing that people ask about first is business. How is that going to affect business? That's the first thing they ask. That's the wrong question. The question is, how is it going to affect humanity first? How is it going to affect your fellow citizen? How is it going to affect your family? And after that question is answered, you then say, how do we tailor business so that it makes sure that family, that human beings are taken care of? They're not mutually exclusive. In fact, it is imperative that we do that, lest we get what we have today, income inequality that hurts. Income inequality by itself isn't bad. Income inequality that hurts human beings is bad. wealth disparity isn't bad. Wealth disparity that hurts human beings, that is bad. And that is why wealth disparity and income inequality is absolutely unacceptable. Now, for those people who we talk about the optics about how this look. Here, just recently, we get this picture of this black man being pulled in the streets like this, like you see on the screen here. In other words, a leash tied, for those that are just listening on a podcast, a leash tied to his handcuffs. He is walking and in between two horses, both with officers on it, pulling this guy, walking down the streets of Galveston, Texas, as like he's a dog. Now, we know what happened in El Paso. In El Paso, we had a killer who murdered 22 people because he hated Latinos. And here is the picture of his arrest. Dignified. He's in handcuffs, and a police officer is dignifiably walking him down the streets, holding his hands to ensure he doesn't fall. That is what I'm talking about. Look at that picture where you see the officer gently cajoling a guy who has just killed, murdered 22 people and maimed 20, 30 other people with an AK-47 look-alike gun. You see the dignity with which he's treated, and you see the indignity with which this man, who was arrested for trespassing, for which many Americans who read that story that went viral, the one that I put out there a couple of days ago, some of them had complaints that said, why are you complaining about that? The guy did something wrong. Now, this guy did something orders of magnitude worse. And he had the dignity of the police who work for us all to put it in that context. Okay, folks, we have to get to the rest of the show because Papantonio had a pretty extensive interview with me. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give you El Señor. We are going to be discussing the opioid epidemic. We have with us El Señor Papantonio. Mike Papantonio, also known as Pap. Here we go. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I have the one and only Mike Papantonio. Who is Mike Papantonio? Radio show host of the show, the Ring of Fire show, America's Lawyer. Yes, this man is America's lawyer. You know what's happening in the country right now with the opioid crisis. You know what is going on. We need to have real people fighting that. Mike Papantonio, welcome aboard. How are you doing today?
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it. This is a critically important topic. I can tell you that right now. It's one we're not talking enough about.
Yeah, and you know the thing about it is, I call what's going on right now legal pushing of drugs. What I'm starting the show this way because I want you to give us an expression of what the difference is between the drug dealer Pablo Escobar and all these other folks, and what the pharmaceuticals are doing.
Yeah, there's no difference. The only difference is that the CEOs of these major corporations are dressed up in Armani suits. They drive Bentleys, and they have MBAs from Harvard and Yale and Princeton, and they have built the largest drug cartel that America has ever seen. And Pablo Escobar is a trifle compared to what these folks have done. And the difference is if you take a young man on the street corner and he's selling 5 ounces of marijuana and he gets caught 3 times, he may go to prison for life, okay? These are people that created the largest drug addiction epidemic ever in the history of America. And not one of them have been prosecuted, not one. Now, we're seeing some indictments take place. As a matter of fact, one of the companies that I'm working against in McKesson, you've got some folks that are being indicted there. But here's what happened. This is the ugly part of the story. First of all, let me tell you, I'm not very tribal in my politics. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm just a progressive.
Right.
And so what I try to do is I try to call shots like I see them. I try to call balls and strikes. If I were to lay the blame of, who's responsible for all this, where did it really turn on us? It's two places. One is the attorney generals in this country had the opportunity 10 years ago to get this under control. But what they did is they met in a big room. They said, hey, can't we just fine you? Can't you just pay us fines? And then we walk out and get in front of a camera tomorrow and say we've stopped the opioid crisis. That's what they did. They accepted $19 million from these companies that have made $19 million while you and I have been talking.
Imagine.
Okay? And so they accept $19 million and then they declare victory. And all these attorney generals, the AG stands for almost governor, they use this as a political tool to get elected. Then there's another part to it, Umberto. It's even worse than that. We expect our attorney generals, the Attorney General of the United States certainly to do something. If you look at the history of both Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and the way they turned their head and they said, listen, we're going to fine you $1 billion or $150 million here and there. We're going to fine you, and then nobody goes to jail. We're going to make it sound like you've paid this incredible amount of money, and then nobody goes to jail. And the truth is, we don't change culture. We don't change the mind of these folks that created this epidemic in America until somebody does a perp walk. Not just somebody low on the list, but the people who made the decisions to put a glut of pills in this country that was so big, it was such a big mountain, that they understood that those pills were going to be diverted to illegal use all over the country. They knew exactly, it's part of their business plan. It is literally part of their business plan. Put enough pills out there. Yeah, we know about the addiction problem, but we're going to make a lot of money if we put enough pills out there. And that's what this case is about. And even the frustrating thing is corporate media doesn't understand that. Because why? McKesson's a big advertiser. Cardinal's a big advertiser. Purdue is a big advertiser. All these folks, huge advertisers. So how do you ever get to the point to where you change culture without saying, it's no more of you just paying money. Somebody has to be treated like that kid on the corner who might go to prison for life for selling 5 ounces of marijuana.
The name of this show is Politics Done Right, and you did something very important on this show a few minutes ago when you stated it's about culture, and when you stated that you're not tribal. I'm not tribal either. I think it is essential that Americans realize that this particular issue is not a Democratic or a Republican issue. This is an issue, it's a corporate issue. It's a corporate issue where all establishments are abiding by the tenets of the corporate state or the corporate structure. I want you to speak a little bit about that, because many times on our show, when we hit corporations, people think we're being anti-American. When we hit corporations on these issues, that somehow what we're doing is hitting the basic tenet of this country. Why don't you express it in those terms that we actually have a more intense problem?
Okay, here it is. Capitalism, I got to tell you, I believe is probably one of the best monetary systems in the world. I mean, if you compare it to anything across the world, it works only if regulations are in place to make sure that greed doesn't ruin the process. We abandoned that years ago. For example, if you look at what the FDA did in this case, look at what the DEA did in this case. Sometimes you have corporations that are able to capture the regulators, whether it's the EPA that allows a corporation to dump a gazillion gallons of toxins into your river, and then taxpayers have to pay for that, whether it's the FDA that allows dangerous pills that they know clearly are going to kill people. They let them remain on the market anyway. Why does that happen? It happens because corporations have captured the regulatory process. They go to Joe or Mary, who's working with the FDA, and say, Mary, I know you're doing an investigation, but gee, you're only making $100,000 a year. Come with us when this is all over. Of course, we don't want it to interfere with your investigation, but when it's all over, we're going to pay you $800,000 a year to come with us and work in regulatory. So here's the problem. How do you not go after corporations who kill people knowing that they're killing people? The opioid industry knew that 150 people were dying every day, and they knew that. They knew it for at least 7 years. The numbers kept growing. They even had something called a death map, Umberto, where they could follow the increases of death all over the country.
Walmart,
but the money was so huge. Say again?
Walmart.
Well, yeah. Well, it wasn't just Walmart. You know, you had so many of these companies that could follow. That today in West Virginia, this is the percentage of people who are dying from overdoses. That kept raising every year. They kept up with that. Actually, the CDC gave them that information, and they still chose to continue killing 150 people a day because the money was too good. And what did media do about it? How about nothing? Why didn't they? Because McKesson advertises, Cardinal advertises on TV. You've got these huge companies that spend billions of dollars advertising with corporate media. I've been in a situation where I've literally been on the air getting ready to talk about a story where a pharmaceutical has killed 2,000-3,000 people throughout the country. I'm in the small count. I'm in 10, 9, 8, and in the middle of the count they said, we can't do that story. Well, the reason they say they can't do the story because...
Let me make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. You are telling me that you've been in the studio, ready to do a story on drugs, and because these are advertisers on the station that you're on, that you were unable...
They killed the story.
They killed the story.
How about MSNBC? It happened more, as you may or may not know. I did
Yes.
commentary with Ed Schultz on MSNBC for a lot of years. There would be times when you had a story that was so important. How about a birth control pill that's killing women? Something called Yaz. The company knew it was killing women. They knew why it was killing women. The clinicals showed it would kill women, and they chose to sell it anyway. I'm in account, getting ready to go on the air, want to do the story. The producer pulls the story because Bayer Corporation is advertising with MSNBC and spending $2-4 million a year. So here's the point. Your programming, social media programming, sometimes is the only place on earth that you're going to get these stories, because corporate media is owned and operated by corporate America. And it's different now. There was a time, Roberto, when you had as many as 55, 60 entities that owned the media. Now it's 4. Some people argue that it's 3.
Right.
We've consolidated to the point to where you can't even get a story like the opioid crisis or the inner workings of what happened in the opioid crisis on corporate media. They can't tell the story because their advertisers won't let them. I had to go to do Russian television. America's Lawyer appears on Russian television
RT.
just so I could tell these stories. RT
Right.
America.
Right.
Can you imagine? I have to go to Russian television to tell the kind of stories that corporate media can't tell because their advertisers demand, they order them, don't tell this story or you're going to lose your advertising with us.
I want to let you know that this particular program, Politics Done Right, is not only on the internet, it's also on Pacifica Network's KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston. So you will be heard on our 100,000 watt station as well here in Houston, and of course throughout the country for those who are syndicating it. So this is important, I'm happy that you made the necessary plug for independent media that doesn't depend on advertising from the big guys, because a lot of folks don't see that importance, and your statement does it quite well. 2 things before I want to talk about. There is a town in this country, I didn't ask you beforehand, I don't know if you remember, there's a town in this country that they have more prescriptions in that town than people in that town. Tell us a little bit about that.
West Virginia, right in West Virginia, we're representing most of the counties and the cities in West Virginia. You have a city there, you have a city there of 400 people where they pumped in 6 million pills into an area. It's not just one. Let's tell you, there's a dozen of those kinds of cities just in West Virginia. I'm getting ready to go to trial, for example, in Nevada. Okay. I'm going to go to trial. We represent the Attorney General along with the local lawyers there. Robert Eglett is a superb lawyer. That we're going to be trying that case in Nevada. There are counties in Nevada that had 1,000 people, have 1,000 people live in the county, that the companies were putting 5, 6, 7 million pills into those counties every single year. Every year. Now, why did they, first of all, they did that because it creates a glut. And what happens with the glut is the company, once the glut is created, they've sold the product. They don't really care what happens with that glut after that.
Right.
They were put on notice that the overdose levels were over the top. They knew that they were being sold in pill mills. Let me tell you how crazy it is. Some of these companies had sales forces right in these little cities and counties. They could drive by and see the pill mill at 7 o'clock in the morning with lines circled around, people standing in their pajamas just to handle their addiction. And the sales rep could actually observe that firsthand.
And many times it's the taxpayers paying for that. Is that correct?
Well, yes, that's called, great question. That is a great question. It's called externalizing losses, and here's how it works. Let me give you the equivalent. I just finished a case up in the Ohio River Valley where DuPont had pumped millions and millions of gallons of a toxin into the Ohio River and the waterways that ended up in people's drinking water all up and down the Ohio River. Mm-hmm. Caused cancer. It caused birth defects. It caused neurological disease. It's called C8. You get it in your Teflon frying pan, okay? Now, when you looked at the documents that DuPont created, it was very evident that what they were thinking is, look, we can dump it cheaply and taxpayers are going to have to clean it up. We can pass on that savings that the taxpayers are having to pay onto our stockholders. They contemplated that. You can see it all the time with all of these companies. This is the equivalent of that. Think of this opioid garbage that these companies have put into the commerce all over America. Think of that opioid garbage, and now you know who they want to clean it up. They want taxpayers. You got to deal with the addicts in your backyard. You have to pay for the rehab. You have to figure out how you're going to pay to increase the number of treatment centers. Taxpayers, you're going to have to pay for increasing the police forces. You're going to have to pay. Do you realize there are places in this country where they had rolling morgues? They had morgues on wheels, because the facility morgue could not handle the overdose, the overload of overdoses in their own city, so they put morgues on wheels. That's how bad it is, and you know who paid for that? Taxpayers, not the companies.
Same
you did.
Thing with oil companies, the externalities that we all pay for. Again, the cheap gas supposedly increased prices. We pay for the cancers. We pay for all these different things that are out there. Now, before we go on to your book, I know you have a new book, and I want to talk a little bit about that, because I'm going to say, why did you need to let's do it first. Your book, Law and Addiction. You just wrote that book, right? Is that correct?
No. Yes. Law and Addiction was just released. It's the third in a series of thrillers. Each one of them centers around real life cases. I mean, there's not one of my first one was Law and Disorder. Mm-hmm. It was about the C8 case that I just described. It was about that book involved the HIV epidemic, right, that was caused by hemophiliac medicine. The company understood they were killing hemophiliacs all over the world. The second book involves the gun industry. This book involves the opioid industry.
But I saw that. I noticed that you had. That they said, we had fictional characters, and in my mind, it's like, Mike, Pop doesn't need fictional characters on this one. I mean, he has real characters, man.
Well, they are real characters. I really literally just changed the name.
Okay,
as you might know, I kind of got spanked on opioids for speaking out publicly about my attitude about this whole process, and so sometimes the judicial system. Here's a part of the problem. Let me tell you why I write these books. First of all, they sell very well because they're good stories.
Right.
They're, anytime you write a thriller, the first point is it interesting? Does it keep me engaged? These books do that. But there's another reason, and it has to do with this. In the legal system, we've created something that is a disaster, total disaster for consumers. Here it is. When we have a company that has done really, really bad things, and we start taking discovery, we take the depositions, we get interrogatories back, we find the documents, we're not allowed to give you that information in most jurisdictions. It's called gag orders. They don't want to call them, some judges don't want to call them gag orders, but that's what they are. No, we're not going to let you see how bad these companies are. Now, while they're doing that, people are still dying from the same product, okay? In pharmaceutical case after pharmaceutical case, you would have cases where the judge would say, no, we're not going to make these documents public. While that was happening, people were still taking the pills and still dying. In the environmental case that we just finished, the judge was brilliant in the way he handled it. He says, why should I keep this a secret? Why should I keep this information secret when people all up and down the Ohio River Valley are dying from cancer? That's the type of system we should have. But in opioids, this has been kept secret for a very long time. Some of these documents were sealed. After the company agreed to pay fines, they were sealed and never saw the light of day. What kind of impact did that have on us? It had 10 more years of abuse.
Mm-hmm. That is sad. Tell us a little bit about that story in the third book.
Okay, so yeah, the book is about it's actually based on how a lot of this happened. We handled the tobacco case years ago, and we did it wrong. We had some success. The attorney generals, we got them involved in making claims, in saying, look, tobacco industry, our taxpayers have had to pay all this money into Medicaid, and because of that, we need to be paid back. We thought it was a great idea, but it really wasn't. It wasn't because the money really never made its way to the counties and the cities that experienced the biggest problem, okay? This book, Law and Addiction, talks about how this case, opioid case, came about. It started with a lawyer in West Virginia, a brilliant young man, tenacious character who said, look, I've had losses, I've lost people, I'm going to do something about this. And he worked it for several years, but he did something different. He said, I want to bring it on behalf of the county that lost the money. I want to bring it on behalf of the city that lost the money. I don't really care about attorney generals because attorney generals are going to cave in every time. They're trying to cave in right now. The attorney generals in the opioid case, again, are trying to cave in. And so this book tells the story of how this case came about. This lawyer came to me, and he went to another couple of law firms, and we put together a consortium, and we launched the opioid litigation. And that's how everything started. This book tells the story, and it's a captivating story. That's all I can tell you.
It has a whole lot of twists. We don't want to get into it because we want people to go ahead and buy the book, but suffice it to say,
read it.
Suffice it to say, I haven't read it yet, but based on the tail end that the agent sent, it is one to be read. Now, with the judges that are being appointed, 25% thus far by Donald Trump in the federal system, are you concerned that the hard work that you're doing, the legal work, given that the political work and the law writing work that these guys are doing is insufficient for the opioid epidemic, are you concerned with the type of corporate-centric judges that are being appointed by Donald Trump at a very young age?
Let me turn something on its head right now.
Yes.
I'm going to come totally from left field, and you're going to say that can't be. All right.
Okay.
If I were to compare the judges that Obama had appointed, I'm talking at the federal level, the appellate judges, the trial judges, they all came from corporate America. You understand?
Yes.
He appointed very few judges that did not come from corporate America. Now take that, and they're terrible. I mean,
Right.
they literally, some of them are, may as well have been appointed by Donald Trump. Now take Donald Trump. Donald Trump's appointment are not that they're just from corporate America, but they're the less sophisticated judges from corporate America. They are the political entities. Many of them, they can't be described as anything but political hacks, truthfully. And so what we want to think that Obama made all these great appointments and now it's worse with Trump. You can't tell a difference, is what I'm trying to tell you. If you come up as a corporate lawyer, Humberto, all you do is you represent corporations. And then an administration says, well, you're really good on social issues. You were good on gender. You were good on, rights issues, racial issues. You were good on those issues. So I'm going to appoint you. Well, they appoint, in the Obama administration, they appointed these kind of social right kind of judges. But when you took a look at their pedigree where it came to consumers, they are terrible. Most of them are awful because they came up through the system. Now, Trump is no better. Trump's, it's even worse because at least some of these guys had some level of sophistication, in the way that they would analyze the law. Now you've got a whole setting where you've got, most of the Trump administration's, these appointments are political hacks. Some of them have never even practiced law. And so it just continues to spin out of control. But it can't be said that we're in trouble now only because of these appointments. We've been in trouble for a long time. The startling news is that some of the best appointments, I know this turns it all on its head, but some of the best appointments, oddly enough, were by Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. Those were some of the best appointments. And think about that. Let me stay with me just a second.
Yeah.
Think about Ronald Reagan's relationship with corporate America. Ronald Reagan, and again, I'm just calling balls and strikes. I'm not a Republican. I'm sure not a Republican, and I'm sure not a Democrat. But Ronald Reagan, during the first burn down, you remember the S&L crisis when people lost millions? You know how he put 800 bankers in prison. Do you know how many bankers were put in prison during the 2007 burn down?
Zero. Yes.
Zero.
Yeah.
And they stole trillions of dollars from the American people. Okay? Do you remember the promises that we were told? Obama ran on, well, we're going to get Wall Street under control, and I'm going to appoint an attorney general that's going to do that. None of them went to jail. To this day, none of them have gone to jail.
It's funny because I talk about the establishment being both Republican and Democratic because of exactly what you said there. And in the issue with Ronald Reagan, it doesn't surprise me. The Republican Party of Ronald Reagan is very different than the Republican Party today.
Yes.
The Democratic Party of Carter is a lot different than the Democratic Party of today. In fact, a lot of the problems Carter had is because he wasn't the corporatist that many of those today are.
That's right. Carter, by the way, made some very, very good appointments. Thanks for bringing that up. He made some very good appointments that are compassionate judges. They didn't come from Wall Street, Washington lobbyist law firms. They were consumer judges that cared about people.
Right.
He was the exception to the rule.
We have some severe corporate issues, and the job that you're doing out there fighting corporations where they need to be fought, I think is important. It is worrisome because, we have the triad. We have the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative. And it seems like all three, barring progressives not being in control under the thumbs of the corporate state. So in closing, why don't you give me a little bit on that camino, on that line?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, I would add another scary point to it. The other scary point after that triad is the media. The media is wholly owned and operated by corporate America. But look, we bought into globalization under Clinton. Okay, remember Clinton's idea was we got to get the money out of Wall Street because it's been going to the Republicans. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to have a centrist government. Wall Street demanded that if we're going to give you big money, we want globalization. We want to send jobs out of the country if we need to make more money. We need to have laws that don't bind us in various parts of the country. of the world. So this globalization actually moved the Democratic Party to what I call the Wall Street Democrats.
Right.
Wall Street Democrats, for example, Joe Biden is absolutely a Wall Street Democrat. He comes from all of that. The division that's created is you have progressives that do remember. They do remember that there was a time when Democrats stood for something besides big donations, the Wall Street connections. They stood for something that was different. And then all of a sudden they start saying, well, TPP is a good idea. NAFTA is a good idea. CAFTA is a good idea. Look what it's done to this country. Look what it's doing to Europe right now. When the UK is the only country over there that has enough damn sense to get away from the EU with Brexit. Globalization is what this notion of globalization all began with Bill Clinton. And since that globalization effort started, the party has become more and more Wall Street central. And I don't know if you're going to be able to change it. Frankly, I saw what happened to Bernie the last election, where the Democrats just absolutely made him disappear because the elitist, controlled Wall Street Democrats wanted Hillary. And we could have told you it was a disaster from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But it's hard for them to learn this lesson. Why? Because of tribalism. I just can't say it enough. You've got to abandon the tribal way that you think about politics and analyze the person, analyze the policy, and analyze it in terms of is this better long range for American consumers, for our environment, for the longevity of capitalism? Is this better for us?
That is the closer, folks. Don't forget, go look for that book. Law and Addiction is the name, by Mike Papantonio. I think where can they get it?
Oh, they can get it anywhere online. Most bookstores carry it too.
And that is Law and Addiction. Senor Mike Papantonio, also known as Pop, thank you so kindly for being with Politics Done Right. This is an important concept, and you're doing important work. Let's get the job done.
Thank you.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that particular interview. I mean, there's a whole lot of work that we have to do going forward. There's no doubt about it. Okay, folks, as you know, this is a progressive show, and before I continue, I want to remind you that and look, I hate doing this, right? I hate asking folks to subscribe. I hate asking folks to go purchase our books, go purchase our T-shirts and all that good stuff. But the truth of the matter is, I have no choice. That is how, just like the big companies are paying, as Mike Papantonio said, paying MSNBC and all these big things to pretty much lie to you, to pretty much get their will. I mean, earlier I was talking about what corporations have to do to make money, right? It's not enough for them to just be blue positive. In other words, it's not enough for them to be just breaking even. It's not enough for them to be just making enough money to pay the shareholders a little bit, to pay their executives a little bit more, etc. They need growth. It's sort of a greed thing, growing at all cost. And because of that, you can't get the news the way you should get the news, unadulteratedly, unbiased with respect to humanity. You can't get that from mainstream media. You can't. As Papantonio said, there are times that he was there about to tell a story. He was about to tell a story as far as what's going on with a birth control drug. And he's there mic'd up and everything, ready to go. And the producer comes and says, story is cut. Why? The advertiser doesn't want you to tell that story. So we have to understand that the only way we get this sort of information out, a lot of stuff that you get from me, it's going to be with a narrative that you're not going to get on air. And the reason why, again, is because these guys are owned by the corporate state, by the corporatocracy, that is. Anyhow, folks, so please go to store.politicsdoneright.com. Get yourself one of our cups, the Politics Done Right teacup. We also have don't forget now, we have now this side, I guess. Guess what? The Politics Done Right t-shirt. Sport it. You have it in all kinds of colors. So please go ahead, sport it so that we can extend the brand, so that we can go ahead and, remember, this is your brand. Politics Done Right belongs to you. So go ahead and get some of those things at store.politicsdoneright.com, or just go to Politics Done Right's website and click all over there. There's stuff how you can go ahead and click to support us. As well, please remember that if you subscribe to us by going to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright, you can subscribe very inexpensively to our program, meaning what you're really doing is you're supporting independent media. That's what you're doing. I mean, we all the books that I write will be online and will be online, the books that I'm writing, and you'll have access to them online just for subscribing. And we do that as another source of income, right? The subscription is going to be our main source of income because advertising, when I started Politics Done Right, I could survive because the website had a lot of traffic and advertisers were coming to the websites they wanted to the website. When Facebook changed your algorithm, it killed us. It killed us. It changed the model completely. It said, in effect, what they were doing is that they were doing exactly what they did to a whole lot of folks our size. They killed many, and many just disappeared out of existence. And if you take a look at what's happening to not only some of the Think Progress and a lot of the other small, independent, progressive type media, they try to kill us. Now, so the model that many of us are adapting now is called the subscription model, where we ask people to give us pennies a day to go ahead and support independent media. In other words, we can't get it from advertisers anymore. We have to go directly to the folks. And by going directly to the people anyway, it's probably a better thing, right? Because our loyalty is owed to you. I mean, it has always been owed to you. I mean, some folks would come to my website when we had ads and say, wait a minute, I saw this ad for some company that I don't like. And I'm like, so don't you feel good that you saw a company there spending its money to teach America that a company like that is no good? I think you kind of best both worlds. But, I mean, our best model is what we're doing now, and that is to be supported by the people who watch us sometimes, a few times a month, or some people watch us diligently every single day. Some people podcast us and listen to us through Spotify. Some people listen to us through iTunes, and we're all over the place. So I'm asking you to please go ahead and go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politicsdoneright, and subscribe and get our books. You can read all our books online. And by the way, you can also buy these books at Amazon.com. You can buy these books just about everywhere. Just like Papantonio was talking about, you can get his books everywhere. So please subscribe. You get, as I see it, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, which was one of my first books, and it is so apropos. Let me tell you, this book, if you read it, I guarantee you will understand the economy and you'll understand what's wrong with the economy. The other book, of course, is the one that I'm writing right now, which is called How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. That particular book I'm on chapter 4 right now. I've written chapter 1, 2, and 3. It's sort of a simplified version of how America is and how can we make it a place that works for everybody. And I call it utopia. Of course, it's not really utopia, but it is our form of utopia, how everybody will get their fair share. And we're talking about just living right. And of course, I've been, there was a time I almost died, 240 over 140 for a blood pressure. And over the years, I've learned how to control my weight and reduce my pressure. And I went down from three pills to 1 pill now, 3 different medications to 1 medication. Lose weight and be fit now. Say no to the snake oil weight loss, because only doing it the right way is going to work for you. So again, please go ahead and consider subscribing to us by going to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. You can also go to store.politicsdoneright.com to purchase at our store the cup, the t-shirts, and some other stuff. And you can also buy our books directly at amazon.com. Look, we really need your support. That is how we are going to make it. I hope you enjoyed the program. I will continue to bring new folks on. I'll continue to bring things that matter, things that are important to us all, because the only way we are going to do this, friends, the only way we are going to do this is to taking it up on our own. And that's what I did. I said, you know what, I complain about the media over and over again for years, for decades. Then I said, wait a minute, we are putting our hands in the hands of the corporate state. We're putting our hands in the hands of the people who are robbing us blind. We are saying to these people, okay, we're going to listen to all the media. We're going to listen to all your reality shows. There's this stuff called bread and circus, right? How did the monarchy stay in power? Bread and circus. Entertain with cheap entertainment and fill them up with cheap food. And isn't that where we're at today? You turn on your TV, you have a whole lot of easy to make, cheap programs. They are posing as reality TV shows, and it is cheap to make them. If you notice, they're just proliferating all over the place because it's inexpensive to make these things, right? And then they make a killing because these programs play over and over again, and you get captured. I'm going to tell you something. I would sit down and watch a reality if I start watching reality programs, a lot of times I don't want to stop. Give me one before, after, what's his name? I don't remember the name of several of them, but I mean, I used to watch I watch it and it's like, I'm staying watching. Can this be happening? Can this be happening? At the same time, you're eating your cheap burger or your cheap something. You're content. You're entertained with crap and you're eating crap, but you're filled up. You have the basic needs, entertainment and food. And at the same time, then we can control what we do and we run. Look, the only way for us to move forward is for us to have folks who are out there bringing some reality to us all as well. And that was my goal. That is why I gave up everything to do this. Because I know, unless we have more of us doing this, and there are a lot of people that are starting to do this now, there are a lot of small folks who have learned how to do this and have started doing it, and it is important for our democracy for it to continue. But most importantly, it has to be funded. And that is what I'm asking for you. Please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright and click on and subscribe. Give us some level of subscription. But let me tell you better, man. If you just go to politicsdoneright.com, we steer you to all these different ways of supporting the show. But we need you. We promise to always honor doing the right thing. That is my promise to you. Promise never to lie to you. Promise if and when we make mistakes at any time to correct them immediately without any concerns. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3.